Welcome to the January 7th, 2026 Master Plan Subcommittee meeting. And we are working through assessing and discussing the results of the survey taken and beginning to formulate the update that's before us. I'm grateful to Phil for his work. And we're going to take the opportunity just sort of to review that and then go from there. So, with that said, I guess I'm of the mind to say that your summaries are pretty much spot on, based upon what I read and what I perused through all the documentation. Mainly the bigger picture instead of the minutia of everybody's personal response. Those were important, but then when you glance through those, it's like there's a lot of repetition of no, 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 or repetition of things that have already been said. So that summary page that we printed off kind of helped me to be discerning, and I used the top 5 expressions, if you will. Yeah. I don't know if I have that. I do have it here someplace. Yeah, so I looked at when we come to these, I looked at the top 5, and that's what's reported. Well, it's not always reported there. It's reported on this yellow piece of paper. I wrote down all those details that, like here, I looked at as an example, transportation under this. So when I looked at these stats for this question.
Where are we starting?
Question 18.
Question 18.
So they're representative in that this idea of transportation, my statement there. But when I identified those, I looked at the highest and then the next one down. So it's 51% that we're saying it's not important, or whatever it is. Not at all important.
Yeah.
Which I think it's, in your statement, it's reflected that way. In that opening, getting in a car, go to somewhere is part of living and where, you know.
In other words, yes. Yes.
So, just so you have an idea of what was going through my head when I put this information together.
Yeah. So the conservative. Yeah, I say, in general, we find the infrastructure well-maintained. I mean, not to, obviously some people would like to see better maintenance, but I think when we generalize it in general, I mean,
Yes. Yep.
I mean,
Yeah, so this excessive trucking is something the planning board has been confronted with in the past. I mean, within the time I've been on the board.
okay,
So that when a development goes in, or like the bridge that's not weight-worthy on River Road, everybody has to go down either East Road, down that way, or go all the way down to River Road and come up through Parker Station or through, what do you call that place now? Something.
that's where you think a lot of those comments were coming from, that area of where?
Yeah, and also we have, I think, a regional impact issue with Goffstown pertaining to the development on River Road, is they don't want all that trucking to go down on Parker Station Road. So, those type of things.
Yeah.
But I think that my comment about upgrading dirt roads is predominantly, I think, one or two comments that were handwritten and, personally handwritten and whatever, so.
Yeah. There were a number of comments regarding speeding and safety in general.
Yeah.
That I thought was the second, one worth mentioning in transportation. Yeah, other than that, I don't think that's the section we need to dwell on the most.
Right.
And respondent profile, the way you wanted to structure the main report, we're gonna like circle back at the very end with the demographics, right?
Yes.
So I
So
skipped
this
one, yeah.
is based on what was given us,
Yeah.
and that's not even full. There's a whole bunch of things I didn't put on there. And looking at the old master plan, that's another part of the puzzle. I was looking at Bedfords and Hennikers and some of the things that, it was like, again, in my mind, there's a lot more reporting than actionables as to give guidance. This is what we look like. What are we gonna do with that now? So this is what we look like. So what are the bullets that come off, like for transportation? What are, you know what I mean? 'Cause so the way the plan works here, it's, just as an example on page 21, it gives you the goal: continue to support, encourage, and protect the historic sites, buildings, and properties, and where. What are the objectives? How does that work? What are those objectives? And that would give us actionables for the planning board to say, okay, these are the objectives of this particular area, so how do we now implement that? And pertaining to transportation, how do we now implement? Is there anything searing, how do we address speeding and excessive trucking? As an example.
Excessive trucking, I wouldn't know where to begin.
Right.
Speeding,
So there is, because we have I believe, a fully staffed police department, and based upon the community facilities and services response that you wrote, people are pleased with that component.
people are very pleased with
So,
yeah.
with that said, we could say that we just could advise that the police department make another concerted effort to be faithful in policing that issue. So we're gonna get to the point where we're gonna make suggestions as to these things need to be part of the process of our plan. These are our goals and objectives. This is now the things the tasks, so.
Right, yeah, I remember discussing the solutions or whatever we're gonna call that section.
Yeah. All right, so I'm cool with that summary.
Of that transportation or just,
Yeah.
yeah, town facilities and services, that was one where, there's 21 different categories, but it wasn't really possible to mention all of them without pretty much reiterating the entire survey.
Right.
Let's see anything that you found stuck out that I didn't mention.
So I looked at those statistics that came up, and so that would be question 22. So that's page 34.
Yeah, the don't know, because people, myself, I understand the transfer station, as do 90+% of Ware residents, and the rest, a lot of us just don't interact with each each of these categories.
Right.
But it's okay to ignore the don't know category and then just subtract that number and, you know, reconstitute the percentages afterward to see where the issues are. So,
Right, so if you take out the don't knows, you've got an overwhelming majority for most of those things in a neutral position.
yeah. So I kind of read. So it turns out. So when you look at this, like, people are actually pretty happy with the open spaces, forests. Yeah, recreation. Oh yeah, right here. Yeah, that's how I came to the conclusions of fire and police and the library being our best services. Yeah, with something to be desired for code enforcement and land use planning.
Right.
But I mean, still, that doesn't mean like animal control, for example, where 50% of us don't really have an opinion on that, but out of those who do,
It's 3 and 4.
it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So here, yeah,
So what this doesn't show, let me see, communication. So for communication, so there's the difference. So the reference you made here, the thing that showed up in write-in responses was the highest frequency was a general failure which is.
yeah, that just,
So that's an important aspect to keep in mind, because when you looked at the answer, to question 23 concerning communication, you've got an overwhelming number in comparison, it's doubled. To be neutral, as opposed to be unsatisfied or satisfied.
I mean, this stat here, like this curve, is that, I don't know if we have a simple way to pull up other categories, but we call this we have this question for every category.
Correct.
And I'm just curious if it's always this.
Well, that's what that other piece of paper, this communication thing I gave you. So, transportation is neutral, I kind of messed things up. Neutral and don't know, those are the two highest numbers. And then here we have, again, neutral and then unsatisfied. It's
like, this is pretty much within a tight range.
correct. It seems to be the way the communication issue, as far as responding to the question, is about the same for everything.
Mm-hmm.
The distinctive is those responses,
Yeah.
which show up, which show up into 24. So question 24 is this, right? Yeah. So the overwhelming, the top 5 are town communication practices, school system performance, land conservation, property tax, municipal budget management.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's fair to say there's a relationship between tax, budget, and the schools,
Yes.
which still leaves the communication practice in our first category.
Right.
Yeah.
Which you bring out, which may be,
I mean, it's possible, like, we don't have a category here for how is the town website. right? And
Not specifically, other than multimedia, and that's supposed to cover the town website as well as any type of email any digital engagement, I think, is what we were looking at, if you recall that.
yeah, we could have been more clear on
Yeah.
what
It's hard to-
multimedia. I don't.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, 'cause
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe to rephrase or to add, the theme that showed up in the write-in responses supports a bigger concern with the highest frequency was a general failure of the town to communicate to its residents. Well, okay, so let's can we put a word in there?
Yeah. Yeah. We're
To effectively, right after general failure of the town to effectively.
yes.
And I think that will get at the essence of the whole picture, because it's like in different, neutral, I don't know what neutral means,
Yeah. It's
you know, because then the overwhelming other part is, it's comparatively, anything above is less than what's below. So you got 26 there. You got 20, 29, 20 here, and then you get the middle. These people don't know. So with that comparison, the neutral side tends to lean this way.
yeah. Yeah. That's fair.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is why I kind of printed this off or put this up together, because I wanted to have it all in one place instead of going looking 16 different places to find it. This is, I think, is going to be a category unto itself in our report. So I don't know if, does this, because difficult to navigate and poorly updated. What do you call that person? They're not an HR person, but it's public relations, right? Is that what big?
I mean, like in general, or
Yeah.
we don't have this position in Ware, right?
No.
No.
But
Yeah, a PR person.
A PR person that, that's part-time, that could be releasing that.
Or
I mean,
just,
because-
or another type of town admin that really just focuses on just keeping our town resources up to date and. Like, for example, what's happening with our YouTube broadcasts? Something's broken?
I don't know what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Naomi couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that means.
Mhm. Yeah,
So-
I mean, this could also be just, like, Naomi and, her is she fully retired, or?
She's retired, but she's working 2 days a week.
Oh, okay, you're trying to,
Until they hire somebody. They haven't hired anybody yet.
okay, yeah, yeah, anyway, just, people like when the minutes get published, and it just seems more transparent, and that's,
Right.
and then it's just little things when, like, obviously, nothing fishy's going on, just, people
Well-
assume the worst sometimes when.
Right. So,
the meeting's
so
not
it's-
published, or,
Right, so it's an issue of, how do you want to put it? It is a personnel issue, because you don't have the financing to support someone whose job is only to administrate
Yeah.
that multimedia component or whatever, TV component. You have a volunteer base that's doing the TV channel, that seems to keep that up to date, but when we go to YouTube or we go to other venues or other updating of information, it's in somebody's lap who has already got too much work going on,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So that's an area that I sort of, this PR person or admin person, if that's a suggestion we could make, that could answer that question.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because
Yeah, once we do get to suggestions and
it
solutions.
is, it is an issue of timeliness,
Yeah,
okay? Because so as an example, between our board and your board, right, you're on the Conservation Commission still?
I'm just a backup, but yeah.
I know,
yeah.
but it's just as an example.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes that information has gotten there, but it hasn't been reviewed in a timely fashion, or it hasn't gotten to you in a timely fashion, or vice versa, or your recommendations or observations haven't got to us in a timely fashion. So someone who's admin responsibility for those type of things can help facilitate that between board interactions or department interactions, so that we're now more fluid. And if we're more fluid there, we're gonna be more fluid with the opportunity to engage the community more faithfully.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, if you could definitely make a note to include that in our, once we do come to solutions and,
Yeah, I got that, I
yeah.
get this here.
So for the sake of, having a summary for our town services, we added the word effectively, which I agree with. I think it's nice to give a shout out to the top performers. Did you come across with anything else that, either from the data or from the write-in responses, that really just stuck out at you of what we need to work on, or just make a note in the survey?
The hard part is this. Some of the issues like property tax can only be addressed by other income, right? And that's not something necessarily we manage per se. But like school performance, that's not under our purview, per se.
Yeah.
Because the school's an independent entity within the community.
Yeah, is
But
it
yet
worth,
accountable to the community.
even if we don't have a potential, let's say it's just not our jurisdiction, but is it worth mentioning,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
scores?
yeah. School performance is an issue.
Okay, yeah, so, where to include that? Well, right here, okay. True, subtract out of what we don't know, 30%. Well, it's actually, I mean,
Correct.
it's so-so, according to the, it's not a top issue according to this data.
Right. But the data of write-ins it's the number 2. I mean, 8%, 11 people out of 93.
All right, it gets a mention then, yeah.
Okay? So, I mean, we could spend the time looking at every little
Yeah,
detail,
yeah.
but it doesn't, I think the top 5 are really the issues that are
Yeah,
within the context of that being addressed properly. And this is just a report of what we've discovered, not
yeah.
that we're looking to make sure that's in there, in the sense that we have a problem with that.
School performance came up several times in the write-in category with negative sentimentality. Or as an area to work on,
Yes, that'd be better than,
as an area.
school system
our school system came up several times in the writing category as an area to work on, and then we're,
Yeah. Perfect.
okay. Then land use and growth management, we get to talk about, there's a natural place where taxes can be discussed.
The hard part, when I look at the amount of time I've lived in town, yes, there've been some developments put in. But when you go down the main roads, 114, 77, Concord Stage, there's not a lot of building on those corridors. So the developments that we've seen are kind of tucked away where, so you look at Collins Landing, and they started out with a small, maybe 5 different units of buildings up the top, and they kind of washed their way down to the lake and came back up. You look at, for the most part, Duck Pond Estates, you can't see that. You see 3 houses when you look in the road. You don't see the ones that are up on the other side, or the ones that are gonna go up the other way. Or another one that's pretty significantly hidden is Rolling Hill over Colby. You go up, halfway up, and it's on the left, and you really don't see a house until you get maybe 1,500, 2,500 feet in, and then there's a couple houses that you see. And it's well managed. It's not like houses on top of each other either. So those type of development things have helped as far as providing tax dollars for infrastructure, et cetera. But I don't see them as getting to the point where they're out of control, as sometimes it alluded to that building's out of control.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's, what do we, oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong category.
So as an example, I think in the master plan of 2003, 2004, 2004, 2005 rather, the amount of population, they were talking about it being up to like 12,000 people. And let's see, I can't remember what the date is on this one. This is 23. So our population in 21 was only 9,000 people.
Well,
And
yeah,
they were saying by
21.
then, it was gonna be like 12.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see the post-pandemic numbers. At least, it just, in my area, it feels different.
Well, this is 23, okay. So I don't know, maybe I can look it up on my phone.
But, I mean, regardless of our feelings, though, the people have shared their feelings.
Right. Yeah, the community profile. Oh, here we go. It said. Anyway, so. I think there needs to be, when we go to the point of forecasting, because that's part of the process too, right? We need to anticipate what type of housing is needed or not needed, you know, when we get to that next section. That we recognize that we have managed our growth quite well compared to what was forecast for us in 2005. Not sure if we did that deliberately, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean,
Because based on what I
there's
see
only-
on the end of the actionables at the end of that document, it's like, when did these things happen, and did they happen? And some of them did, and some of them didn't. And that's my struggle as being on the planning board. So we need a purpose to be sure that part of our meeting time is looking over and evaluating those actionables to say, what do we need to be doing to do this? And we attempted, as an example, short-term rentals as being proactive in the process of engaging with what are other communities struggling with over that? And what does that look like for us? And we attempted to do that, but we never gained any traction on bringing it about in a constructive way. It's still kind of on the back burner. We're still waiting to figure out whether that's something we need to or not need to do. Because there's a lot of issues for verbos or, you know, those rental companies that are supporting some of the cottages on the lake that aren't able, just because you put 4 beds in a bedroom doesn't make it legit to be in a 10-person house, because
Right. Yeah, I remember this discussion from a few years ago.
Yeah, your septic is for 2 people.
Yeah.
But anyways.
Well,
Yeah, so there's, how do I want to put this? Unless you go searching, unless you go and figure it out to figure out where the commercial zone or industrial zones are and where, you won't find them unless you're purposely searching. In your daily routine, you won't come across them. Like B&B Lane, the majority of people don't go down Gould Road other than cutting through to go from 114 to 77. So, and even there cutting through, there's not an obvious big black, you know, sign at the end of the road that said, this is an industrial zone. You know, until you read it in the paper that there was an accident or there was a fire and that type of thing. So that's the part of the safeguarding our rural character that we've already done that we want to perpetuate. And I think when you said, you know, increase without sacrificing the rural character,
the need to decrease their tax burden
yeah,
by increasing the commercial tax base without sacrificing rural character. Yeah. Yeah, and that's the point that kind of goes into whatever visions we select. Yeah, I mean, from all these years ago, the
it's
bullet
still
point
there.
is still there, and it's
Yeah. That's what I think. It's also representative of that demographic, because our demographic, this is the majority of the people who are in that age bracket who responded.
Yeah, and even if we broadened it, it's probably like, still 55 plus
Yeah.
response group.
Right.
Yeah.
So that tells you who is actively engaging.
Yeah.
and gives you that sense of, number one, we have to pay attention to them. Number two, we also need to educate the other people on each side of the spectrum. So when I was in high school, we did this type of thing. And those who were on the honor society, because we didn't have to go to class all the time, we had to go door to door handing out a survey.
Really?
Yeah. And we would talk to them and say, this is a survey concerning the vision and goals for our school system, and we would like your input. And the majority of people welcomed it, so gave it to them. A week later, we were gonna pick it up. But there was a minority who were saying, I don't have kids in the school, I don't care. Don't want anything to do with this. But they didn't realize that their input was just as valuable because they're still getting taxed for it, whether they have kids in the school or not. And our biggest concern in our community right now is our taxes. As we talked about last time, that it's pretty much staying the same. There's some blips as things go on. But for the most part, it's not like going through the roof, skyrocketing. What skyrockets is not the tax base, it's the value of your home. That's what's changed.
Yeah, I remember this discussion.
Right. So ultimately, if you want to make an impact on bringing your taxes down, dealing with the assessor and how that process works and knowing what that looks like is important. And then also, when a house next door goes for $1.2 million and your house is evaluated at $275, what's going to happen with your evaluation? Now, you can't compare apples to apples because that $1.2 million house may be elaborately different than yours, but there may be some similarities, and it's just that it's a newer house as opposed to an older house. So then how do you decipher that influence, you know?
Is there, I mean, this is a little bit off topic, but is there like a petition option for, let's say you get a valuation you are not happy with?
I believe so,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it can probably go both ways, like on the second review, they could add value or something.
Yeah, right.
So maybe you might not want to.
Yeah.
But that is an outlet.
Yes, there is an opportunity for that,
Yeah.
always. And to come to an understanding as to the reasoning why is always there.
Yeah. Well, so all I did, I mean, I was just commenting on the sentiment I found in the survey.
Yeah, I think it's still good. I think it's,
Yeah,
I like the last phrase, residents notice a voice that any new businesses should fill voids and services that are not currently provided anywhere rather than more.
Yeah,
of
I
what we
didn't want to
already
like
have.
name names of the businesses that people
Yeah.
feel are redundant here, but
Yeah. Well, so that, that brings up that other aspect that things are hidden. Because we have numerous cottage industries in people's homes around the town that are just like, that's there, I never knew that. You know, there's a printing company on Hodgson Road. There's Zulip Farms, you know? Unless you are familiar with those things, driving by, you'd never know. So those are some of the aspects as far as growth and development that are already happening
yeah.
that is still part of that demographic of understanding, you know, making people aware.
Yeah, but I mean, you explained to me that unless they're taxed commercially, it's to the point of raising that commercial tax base. Just because we
Right.
have that cottage industry doesn't necessarily mean we are really bringing in revenue.
Correct.
Um,
So,
Also, I mean, this is another sort of aside, but I would love to do an exercise where we could take the figures of, let's say, our Dunkin' Donuts and say like, well, how many Dunkin' Donuts would you need to actually lower your taxes $1,000 per resident? Like something crazy like, and then my instinct is, you'll never get to the commercial base high enough to make a dent in anyone's taxes. I mean, we want to try, right? But it doesn't seem realistic for a town with our population and our zoning. There's only so much you can do there.
Right, and even then, if you look at it from that perspective, does that technically lower the biggest portion of our tax bill, namely the school?
Yeah, so like if there was like an extra $1 million that came from commercial taxes, then what is the school budget?
Yeah, I don't know how that works.
Yeah, well,
I mean, it would come to the point where you designate that money to that particular area in order to drop that tax impact. And technically, I don't know how it works in Henniker. I mean, their taxes are higher than ours. Deering's taxes are higher than ours. But it's like, I don't understand. Henniker has the college, which is a pretty significant contributor. I don't know
it may
how
not
that works.
not be as a higher education,
Right,
I mean,
don't know.
but yeah, as I said, it's the sentiment.
Well, so that's land use and growth, but when we come to economic development, there's another aspect. Well, so do we make any changes to that one?
No, I mean, I also took this stat there too.
Okay, so let's go to housing and zoning. Yeah, yeah. I think we should add a phrase to the end that talks about, yet they still, so under those vision goals and objectives, there's the second thing that's listed as business growth and expansion. And I can't remember where that. Yeah, so that's question 48. So question 48 responds to rural character preservation, business growth and expansion, small town character, fiscal and cost. And I just listed it, I think, on that section instead of giving us percentages.
Wait, why did you want to jump ahead a little bit out of the zoning category?
I don't want to jump, I want to add something to that deals with identifying so that's an economic development, but I think identifying an advanced location for new commercial and industrial development, to add that to, maybe you already have it here.
There is, however, strong support to identify and advance locations for commercial and industrial development.
Yes,
I have that in
in economic development, okay,
Yeah.
all right, good, that's the part that there's some like overlap in perspective or.
Yeah, in general, I thought this data was interesting here.
Yes.
Yeah, my instinct was that, this is where, after all, this should be flipped like that.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's what I was expecting.
yeah,
Based on just our general discussion and preparing for it, it was like, yeah, kind of, based on what I see and hear. And it comes down to, again, communication.
I think you're right.
If the building department isn't up to speed, or the fire code people aren't up to speed, we went through a rough time with a building inspector who knew his stuff but didn't know his stuff, knew his stuff and implemented more stuff, type of thing. And, I came to like the guy over time, but it was like, why do we have to work so hard to understand each other, And now, our new building inspector and our code enforcement guys are doing an awesome job,
Great.
And that's so if you walk into an office and they don't know what's going on, that really rubs on you the wrong way, as you go back to everyday life and say, yeah, I'm not sure if I got a fair shake on that, or if I still don't understand what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
But so even though, as you state here, identify majority stand against developing any new industrial parks in town. And yet, there is a desire for us to identify it before, in advance.
Yeah, I don't think that's actually, I think that actually does go hand in hand. It's like, I don't necessarily want it, but if it's
Yes.
happening, we better talk about it in advance,
Right,
so
right.
we're all on the same page. Yeah, so when zoning or planning or whoever does talk about it, yeah, I think it would be important to frame the discussion as, we're not looking to go develop, we're just identifying in advance.
Right. Which when so when you look at our zoning map, there are parcels of property that people decided, I'd like it to be commercial. Because they had, at the time when that part was readdressed, they were anticipating doing something with the property, and it never happened, And so then, all of a sudden, now it's commercial, and now you're limited to what you can do there. And yet, it's not commercial enough to do what you could do,
Interesting.
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And then you're out in the middle of where everybody sees type of thing, as opposed to, let's see if we can make this as user-friendly as possible, and maintain our rural character, as, instead of looking at a warehouse that looks like a warehouse, can we make it look like multi-unit housing type of thing, as opposed to something ugly and box-like?
right.
Or like that hotel on the strip up in North Conway that has, there's a church room, there's a saloon room, in each,
Oh, that theme hotel?
yeah, each facade has a different theme for each of those rooms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I don't know, I don't think we would ever vote in favor of having sort of, how would you call it, like, not historical building codes, but like, rules that say how your structure needs to look.
Right.
That doesn't sound
Well,
like,
we've had historic overlays for
Yeah.
that type of thing, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't.
Mhm.
And that's the hard part, is how much historic stuff is really part of our community and what we see today, as opposed to, there's a good part of our history that's under the lake,
Right.
you know, that those homes were dismantled and rebuilt or not rebuilt or whatever, type of thing, so. I think there's another component of the economic development that we can kind of advance or help advance, you know, to populate the Economic Development Committee. But yet, I think we need to encourage the rebirth of our Chamber of Commerce. And I don't know how that can happen. Because when I first moved here, and this is how, the Chamber of Commerce printed a telephone book for everybody. You know, it was a small one, but it had everybody's white page listing in town, and then every business's yellow page listing. And it wasn't put out by Bell, you know, as far as your traditional telephone book, but it was only, you know, a small, like a half sheet of this, about that size.
Who funded the Chamber of Commerce?
I don't know.
Or was there funding, or?
I don't know how that
Interesting.
worked.
Yeah.
But now that's non-existent. Even I tried getting on the website today, there's a link to the Ware Chamber of Commerce, you hit the link, it goes nowhere. But that would be a component that could help facilitate the economic development as far as making people aware. Because it's really not planning.
Well, what exactly did this committee
I don't
take
know.
care of?
I don't know either.
Yeah. Well,
But that was asked, that was a question that was asked, right? We asked
yeah,
that-
was
we
it you or
asked-
Salem that remembered that committee that's,
Defunct. I think Salem probably remembered it.
I mean, would you like me to make a note in here, populate the Ware Economic Development Committee and/or?
Yeah, and or facilitate the Ware Chamber of Commerce. Because that's the component that, all right, so say we would like to identify a zone that is gonna be industrial or commercial, right? And we want to, now how do we draw vendors, if you wanna call them that? How do we draw businesses to that? What incentives do we give? And as opposed to letting the economy develop its perspective to say, this is a
So
resident.
wouldn't Ware have to own that land for this even to be applicable?
Technically, yes, but technically, no. It would be an incentive that we would say, this is zone this, somebody else owns it, are we gonna help them facilitate the development of it? And that's the, what's the word I'm looking for? That's the aspect of the private enterprise that needs to help facilitate. And we need to help facilitate that in some way with economic development. Not that we make our zoning lax in order to facilitate that, but we find ourselves, okay, so we have this region, what can we do in that region? What we prefer, right? So without having that type of perspective or guideline within the master plan, how do you find yourself across from Langtox with yet another huge storage facility as opposed to a McDonald's? You know,
Yep.
you know, so when we look at Langtox, there's the grocer, which they're striving really hard to make themselves relevant and competitive, as far as updating everything in that store that was, you know, antiquated. But now you've got other venues in the back there that are they're struggling to be in existence. Because most people go to the holy grail of Dunkin' Donuts than anything else, than going to Subway but there's nothing else for food in that. You know, there's physical therapy, there's karate, there's a daycare, there's, you know, those type of things. But as far as, you know, restaurants, I think it's another thing that came up is restaurants.
Yep.
How do we facilitate that? I mean, it's nice that, Stark Tavern moved, because it's, I think, a better venue. But what about the old place? What's gonna happen with that? What's, you know, that owner is having struggles with his septic, and I don't know what the plans for the future for that is, or, you know, those type of things that we have no clue of, because we don't know the industry that potentially could be in different places. And then you hear different stories about Walmart wanted to come and put a distribution center in just by north of, well, where Ilsley's farm is, where they're rehabbing. Just up the street from Country 3, and there was a rumor that Walmart wanted to put a distribution center in that 45 acres or something like that. And it's like, how in the world is that gonna happen? Because it goes down like this and goes up. It's like, that's a lot of work, you know, or even what they had hoped to put in, across from Hillsborough Ford on that hill, that it was supposed to be a Walmart building, but that never came to fruition. Or even, you know, my father-in-law was offered a certain amount of money for his home because they just wanted it to have access to the backside of a piece of property that they're gonna develop into a grocery center in Epsom, and it never happened.
Interesting.
So all these things, you know, when I talk to contractors who tell me stories, yeah, I'm working on this project, but they started this project 10 years ago in the paperwork, or 5 years ago in the paperwork. You know, so it's not like it happened overnight.
Yeah.
And economic development doesn't happen overnight. You can make plans and procedures, but it could be a long-range perspective, you know, so.
Yeah, there was that question of, you know, for the right business, would you want the town to, would you support an incentive for the above identified businesses? Providing, yeah, that's my last sentence here. Providing incentives for the types of businesses desired and where had mixed support. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and that's, how do you make, that's the part that's hard, is what does that look like? We're not,
And it's,
so we're not a college, as an illustration. I went to Gordon College, and my sophomore year, the school bought a ladder truck for the local fire department, because they were investing in more infrastructure and more dorms, and the fire department couldn't afford a new fire truck in order to properly maintain that property. And so the school bought them a fire truck. And that's the incentive, you know, the town is saying, okay, you're willing to do that, we're willing to help facilitate this building project, or whatever. Not to say that it was a rubber stamp, it wasn't at all, but the point is that that's incentive, that's called, you know, building that relationship of accountability and feasibility, to make sure that the community's safe, but also this college community's safe, you know. And some of the times, I don't think we even begin to go down that road of thinking those things that we need to be thinking for a master plan, because we're spending more time dealing with just the daily work.
yeah, I mean, that's,
You know, so it's like, you wanna own your own home, okay, well, you get the money to own your own home now, but you haven't got the money to maintain that own home. you know? So it's one of those mixed blessings, I guess. So,
So, I mean, this one will be a little more complicated to, when we talk about solutions, is the sense I'm getting.
right, yeah, so some of those things that come up in question 37, business tax, in the responses. Yeah. In this, you know, the overwhelming top is business tax policy, business regulation policy, local business support initiatives, business marketing strategies. So the marketing strategies, that's where I'm thinking that
The Chamber of Commerce,
Chamber of
or the,
Commerce.
where in the world, not that that's affiliated formally with the town, but
Right,
it is kind of the main news of the town.
yeah. Okay. So we want to do one more? Actually, we're almost done.
Well, I mean, were there any necessary edits, or we can just keep moving?
No.
Great. This was kind of a tough one to summarize. Just pretty much every area in natural resources, you know, people want to
Oh,
protect.
it was through the roof.
And that's great. It was just kind of, how do you summarize it?
This out of everything, this was the one that was overwhelmingly yes, 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 yes. All these are fives. That was the highest percentages. All fives.
Yeah. A lot of fishermen in Ware.
Yeah.
I mean, also, it's an older demographic, I understand, but, you know, I live near Abijah Bridge.
Yep.
And, it's crowded. It's a fishing hotspot now.
Yep. Yeah, there needs to be a boat ramp there, but there's a big rock in the way.
Those rocks don't get in my way as a kayaker, but.
Right, myself too. That's where I learned to have a 7-foot pole that's extra heavy. And because I was fishing in there with my son, and I've got a 6.5-foot pole that's medium. And this bass keeps yanking at it, and I miss him. And he drops it in the next hole next to me, and he's got a 7-foot pole that's heavy. And the distinction is that you are not above the water fishing in a kayak. You are flat with the water, so the advantage is the fish. So when you go to yank it, there's no fulcrum happening. It's too short. If you were standing up, well, that would be a different story.
Yeah.
So, yeah, fishing was number 2.
But kind of like the takeaway I got from this of like, just like how many people are like, you know, out and about, especially in this hiking category, that does lead to some solutions, of, you know, where.
So, one of those things is, that comes up on question 45. Is this whole idea of trail development.
Yeah, and that's.
So as an example, we have cluster housing that has a piece of property that the Conservation Commission is responsible for. And what development is being taken to do those things, you know, make trails. Or how do we take, for instance, where Winter Wanderers and those trail systems, how do those become UTV and ATV trail systems?
Yeah, that one, I mean, that was an interesting question. One of the original reasons I joined Conservation Commission was to figure out, like, a lot of these really rutted out ATV trails, how can we make them a little bit more user-friendly?
Mm-hmm.
But the answer that I got was that a lot of these areas are, like, old roads,
Mm-hmm.
which is, like, technically Transportation Department and where, so not Conservation Commission's purview at all.
Oh,
So that's to take it to I didn't even know we had Transportation Department, but I guess
yeah,
that's not CC's purview, but
DPW.
DPW, yeah. But yeah, we're actually we Zuzu and I we organized a few, mainly Zuzu, volunteer days at the Poor Farm property.
Okay.
We got a brand new loop, signed it. It's great. The last step is to put up a new sign right at the parking. But we recently just put it on all trails, so if you go on
Oh, cool.
Gaia or all trails, you can see, like, the new trails are updated. So we want to chip away at all the conservation land, prioritize, like, who gets the next trail. Potentially the property near the dump.
Yeah.
And that's Felch Farm. 'Cause
Yeah.
everyone goes there, and it's high acreage, so
Yeah.
could be the next one.
Yeah.
But
Or even Clough. I mean, there's a trail system, but it's limited to only ATVs.
yep.
What can, granted, I'm not sure if it's a state or Army Corps of Engineers there, but how can that be facilitated to make it larger,
Yeah.
Because I thought we had an ATV club at some point. I'm not sure if that's still in existence or not, but.
But yeah, that's another place, yeah, people really like, and you see a lot of people walk, you can go all the way around the lake, pretty good loop,
Yeah.
but, yeah, so anyway, from this whole category, that was kind of like my takeaway, is like, oh, it really does, and you got the same takeaway there.
Yeah.
Does translate to trails and just access
Yeah.
to the outdoor activities.
Yep. And not necessarily ATV, UTV trails, just trails.
Yes.
In snowmobile trails, biking trails. I mean, granted, we don't have, a lot of our rail trail infrastructure is non-existent because it followed the river.
Right, yeah.
But that would have been cool to be able to connect all the way down to, where does it end? On the other side of Kelly Street Bridge by the ice arena. You can ride from there all the way up to Goffstown Center. But if you continued, you could come all the way up to where? Or even up to, I mean, the snowmobile trail will take you up to the top of Kearsarge.
Yeah, it's amazing how
So,
you can, and this point showed up in the, potentially there's the economic development section about, like, what is the rural economy, and a lot of people were saying, like, the North Country model of, motorized sports, and I didn't want to highlight that, necessarily, but that was a good model, or like the mountain biking you see up north in
yeah,
Vermont. Just
yeah.
so I think I ended up calling it just outdoor.
Well, that's,
Tourism.
so there's another aspect of, like, Pat's has got downhill skiing, but what do we have in our area?
That's what I have right here.
In our area for cross-country skiing? We have to go into Concord or,
The snow, it's not consistent enough anymore.
yeah, I know,
Yeah, I go out on Horace to do it.
okay.
Yeah, but I think I put this in visions, goals, and objectives. Where offers an abundance of outdoor recreational opportunities, especially in forests or on rivers and lakes. That easily could have been part of the economic plan
Correct,
of
right. Right. Yeah, I think these last things are fine. I don't see anything that you missed or that needs to be added. Because the overall impact and is back to that, which you referred to earlier, the visions and goals page. So when I looked at these vision statements, I don't see 5 being anything with a distinct unique character while remaining an important part of larger region consisting of the 2 major urban centers. I don't think that's.
Not a very inspiring point.
It's not what?
Not a very inspiring
No.
idea.
Town with an attractive and flourishing town center, enhancing existing satellite and historical. I mean, that's kind of already been met in some respect, with the school being part of the center of activity. A lot of meetings happen in the cafeteria, a lot of activities take place in the gym. I mean, town that values education and need to maintain and improve its existing. I think existing school facilities and education, you know, if we were gonna keep that, I would just take out school facilities. Cause it's just, that goes back to what we said on the opening one, that, you know what I mean? Because it's really, the educational services need to improve. And then the last one, a town with a diverse population and economy, offering opportunities for its youth and seniors. You know, I think that's being met, but I'm not sure if that's an overall vision perspective from what I read in the, did you see when it responded to the questions about seniors? It was kind of indifferent. The only time that came up was under community facilities, yes.
The recreational
Recreation
opportunities.
for seniors, you know, 50% don't know. They don't know what that means,
That was a little bit interesting because of the older demographic of that we have here.
Right, and that's the part that was interesting with the transportation. It wasn't important for them to have public transportation.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And I don't even know how that would work. It wouldn't be, it'd have to be all, you know, they got a volunteer program that's working it now, but even then, there are other opportunities for transportation, like an Uber, or whatever other type of things are for Uber.
Yeah, I can't always get an Uber around here, actually.
No?
You can get here. You can't leave.
Well, that's like, so, there was we were working at the church one day, and this Chinese guy coming from Concord, from, do you know where, the corner, well, I call it the corner, at the end of Concord Stage, you get all the way down there, and you come, and it's like the Corner View
after
restaurant.
89 or?
Yeah, after 89, you get in there, and there was a Rite Aid on the right, and there's this plaza, and there's a pizza place, there's a Chinese food place, and this guy was totally lost. He had no idea where to get anywhere. So we helped him. We called the people to find out where they lived. I know where they live. I'll take you there. So I rode with him, and someone picked me up, and it was kind of interesting to see that here's a guy they called for takeout all the way from Concord. Wow. You know, it just was like crazy.
And they delivered it?
They delivered it.
I gotta call this restaurant.
They get lost in the process, but. All right, so what do we think we're do next?
Do you have in your notes, I guess we could, we write up the vision statements. That's another to do. As a committee, we can brainstorm solutions before we go into that joint meeting you suggested with the planning board. 2 areas. Then we'd still have to do write up the demographic section in some form, just to.
Right.
I mean, we
So when I look at, like I said, when I look at this whole thing that's been put together, to me, it's cumbersome. I even looked at Henniker's master plan and Bedford's master plan, and it's like they made a book. And it seems cumbersome to me to have to use that model. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
I think that the simplest directives are the most helpful, rather than forecasting what we think the town is gonna be, and therefore we have to do this, or we have to do that. When we're really, the people are saying, no, we want it simple. We want it in that place where we are continuing to consistently keep our rural character. And that means that some of those resources that people, some are expecting, aren't gonna happen. You know, like, walking trails is one thing, but having a sidewalk down the center, down the side of the road in where, downtown, that it's not gonna happen. And people, like your opening statement about people going, they know they have to drive. You know, and what I have experienced is that if you have moved to where from a different portion of our community at large, if you've moved here from Manchester, you don't shop in Concord. Doesn't matter where you live and where. If you've moved from Manchester, you shop in Manchester. If you've moved from Milford, you shop in Milford and Amherst, right? If you move from Concord or North, you're going to Concord, you know? Before you could shop online, my boys enjoyed just spending the day with Dad, and we would do the Walmart loop. And we'd go to Concord, to Hooksett, to Manchester, you know, and do this big, huge loop of different Walmart stores. Because we learned that depending on, because we only went to the sporting goods department, depending upon where that Walmart was located, you would have better, like Claremont Walmart.
Really, they're that different?
Yeah, the hunting department was unbelievable compared to any other Walmart in the area. And that's mainly because they're a border town, Walmart. So they got people coming from Vermont coming over. So there's a different demographic shopping there. Same thing, the North Conway Walmart. Totally different than any other Walmart. And that person who's the supervisor for sporting goods, if they're a hunter, you're gonna see more of that. If they're a fisherman, you're gonna see more of that. And then if they're indifferent, they go back to corporate. And corporate says this is what you should have.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the center store. When we first moved here, it was like, oh, this is cool, because there was a whole archery department in the center store. Nowhere to be found now, but it was like really cool to walk in on and discover that, hey, all this, we don't have to go all the way over to Hillsborough to Morse's. We can do it right here in town. So what are our directives for our next meeting?
Could be fun to start with the fun stuff of just identify the solutions and actionable items.
All right, so what if we kind of take the model that they have, the idea of goals, objectives, and tasks. Tasks are the actionables. So based upon what we've discerned, what are the goals for each of those areas? Some of them, it's the same thing. We're gonna keep it a rural character.
So would this be sort of, again, like a by category exercise?
Yeah,
So a goal, or is a goal different than an objective?
Yes. So let's, community vision, goal and objectives. So, as an example, these are existing and future land use. Develop and implement a strong master plan, that's the goal. Number 2, and these 6 are all goals. Adopt necessary regulation, promote the principles, et cetera, et cetera. But then here in regional concerns, it has a goal and objective. We got goals here, and objectives here. So that's just an example of what it unfolds. Do you have a copy of this, or it's online? This is the present
I don't think
master
I have a
plan.
copy of that.
Present master plan.
Oh,
But, so those
I
are,
just filed it away from.
so those are
several
goals
months
and
ago.
objectives, but like I said, by the time you get through all that mess, here's the end of it. What are the implementation action table? So under regional concerns, initiate contact with town Goffstown regarding development of future plans to improve or signalize the intersection of Route 114 and Route 13. Which is Country Three Corners. No, 114 and 13. That's downtown. Why is that our business? They didn't want anything to do with it, for that matter. Only because what happens in the morning, if you're commuting to Manchester and you're going that way, Elm Street coming down, or is it not Elm Street? 13 coming down to 114, and then Elm Street going that way by the library, that whole area is a big mess.
Yeah.
And then it was confounded by Wallace Road with its kids going to school. That's why there's a roundabout there. To solve the traffic problem, to make sure it keeps flowing. That's why at Page's Corner now, there's a stoplight. I mean, stop sign for all people, all 4 corners.
Yeah.
Because it's a safety issue, because some people coming up the top of the hill with a yellow light aren't putting their turn signal on until it's too late and this other person's jumping out in front of them. Or the stoplight at the end of exit 2. What a blessing that is,
That one is helpful, actually.
you know, because it's pretty quick. And it's
That's the thing,
paying
yeah.
attention to the amount of traffic that's going through that region. So those types of things happen. So it might be another, I think I'm gonna ask the planning board to look at this again to see exactly what changed when. On page 2, these actionables, whether they were really done. And what they did, you know, review town's cluster housing regulations to look for ways to encourage affordable housing and enhance rural character. Planning board's budget. There's no such thing. It just, you know. But anyways, that's kind of where I got the idea of goals, objectives, tasks. Tasks are those actionables. How do we actually do? These are the overall big picture goals, like is to have a functioning master plan.
Yeah, this could be a challenging exercise. After we do put our brains together, I'm sure we'll come up with something there.
Yeah.
Do you want to do the same format where we each go through the entirety and then combine?
Sure. Do you want to do it that way? You want to break it out and tackle a couple and someone else tackle a couple?
Yeah, perhaps it's more more manageable if we split it up a little bit.
Okay. So there are one, two. So I have 9 pages. I'm gonna say overall assessment at the end of the project. So those 2 sections are off the table.
Which 2 is off the table?
Vision, goals, and objectives, and overall assessment. So question 46 to 52 is more generalization. Whereas,
Sorry, it doesn't need to be part of the goals, objectives, and,
it does, but what we are talking about doing, this doesn't help us.
okay.
It's just, that's 40,000 feet,
Yes, yes.
right?
Which gets summarized as vision statements, basically?
Correct, right.
Okay.
That's something that we all should do, is assess those.
Okay.
So assess the 2005 vision statements.
And, yeah, just like merge it with the
Yeah.
46 to 52 and just come up with something,
Yes.
Recent.
Yes. 46 to 52. Okay.
Do you think Salem will be able to take a section?
Yeah, if we assign it to them.
Yeah, one third should be good.
So if we skip the profile thing, we don't need to do that. So we got transportation, community, facilities and services, land use and growth management, zoning, economic development, and natural resources. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things. So we each do 2.
That's it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That too hard?
No, it's
Okay, no?
no, that's good. I'm like, which one do I want?
You get first dibs.
Not transportation.
Okay.
Take the next 2. So it'd be 1, 2. Okay, so then that would mean I'll take land use and growth management.
Well, do you want to take economic development and natural resources and open space?
Yeah.
Because that seemed to be, I mean, you're kind of lit up when you're talking about trails.
great. Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to take them in order, you can take another one.
Oh, okay. Sure. Yeah. No, that works. Land use.
Why don't you do land use and natural resources,
Very good.
okay?
All right, and then your categories.
So then we could give, I'll do transportation and community facilities. And then Salem will have zoning
I'm sure he'll enjoy that.
and economic development. And our goal is to prepare a goal, any goals that deal with that, as well as objectives and potentially some tasks. As well as assessing the 2005 vision statement and comparing that to questions 46 and 52.
Or yeah, we'll do that too before this next meeting, yeah.
If we can.
I think we will be able to, because next month I'm out and you're having surgery, right?
March, I'm having surgery.
Oh, darn, okay, because next month I'm out.
Okay.
But
Well, that's fine. I mean,
I can still submit some,
yeah, the first Wednesday of March I have surgery. So we could see if we can shift that to a different date based upon what's going on with the calendar.
the March meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or even, you're out in February, right?
Yeah.
So let me check on those, question, February and March, different dates. Okay,
So our next meeting is currently TBD.
yes. So Phil is out in February. Okay,
Yeah, I mean, I would be back at probably the last Wednesday of February, if that were available.
okay.
That's the only weekend. Yep.
That's when you'll be back?
The last week of February, I'll be back, yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Okay,
Done?
yeah, what's the magic words, Bill?
Motion to adjourn?
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Motion passes.